Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hey, we're back after a week's absence, and here we are ready to talk about Maya, because I know you love to talk about Maya. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sanyavadi Paschat Satarine. So, before class, I was thinking about Prabhupada's statement, Krishna Consciousness, which obviously we've all heard. And Prabhupada got that statement from a verse by Rupa Goswami. But I was thinking, as you have Krishna consciousness, you also have Maya consciousness, correct? Krishna consciousness simply means consciousness of Krishna, awareness of Krishna. And more specifically, it means, I'm just looking bring up our document. Specifically, it means seeing Krishna everywhere. That's really the goal of Krishna consciousness. See Krishna everywhere. Okay. See Krishna everywhere. All right. So, what does Maya consciousness mean? It means to see Maya everywhere. If you have Krishna consciousness, you must have Maya consciousness, correct? So, this is interesting because, as you all know, actually we're testing my voice today. I think I'm greatly improved. I'm not really coughing much. So we're testing to see if I can get through if I get through this without coughing or coughing very little, that's a sign we can continue. If speaking today causes me to cough, it's a sign that talking too much is not good for me. So this is the test run today. We did a little 15-minute talk yesterday and I was fine. So, you may have read the purport in which Prabhupada was saying, well, people look at us and they see that we're working, organizing, publishing books, collecting money, and they think, but these people are like everyone else. This is just material activity. And Prabhupada said, but they don't know the difference is, and the only difference is, we're Krishna conscious. We're doing it for Krishna. We're conscious of Krishna. So we all understand this. What's the difference between doing anything? It's consciousness in which you do it. So even though you're doing the same thing, the consciousness is different. Therefore, Prabhupada called this movement, the movement, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Do what you're doing, but do it in a different consciousness. So flip it backwards. You can, as I don't know if you've heard me discuss this, but we've discussed the opposite. Doing something which externally is devotional service and internally one is not Krishna conscious. So just as you can take what appears to be ordinary material activity by your consciousness, turn it into Krishna consciousness. You can take a spiritual activity by your consciousness, turn it into Maya. I will become a devotee in order to get some power to exploit other people. And I will go through all the motions of bhakti. I will go through the motions of bhakti. I will fool people. I will make people my followers so I can control them. So externally I'm doing Krishna consciousness, what appears to be I'm chanting, I'm teaching and so forth. But in my conscious, I'm Maya conscious. I pulled Krishna out of the picture. I put myself in the center. So essentially, when you're speaking about Maya, you're really speaking about Maya consciousness, the consciousness of removing Krishna from your vision, from your consciousness. And it's not necessarily dependent on what you're doing. And that's why Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness is not dependent on anything material, because it's a consciousness. You can be Krishna conscious anywhere. And you can be in Maya while you're in the association of devotees. You could be in Maya while you're chanting. You could be in Maya while you're in front of the deities. It's possible. You could be, your consciousness could be somewhere else. So, adantarasta paramanu chayantarasta. In Brahma Samhita, it is said, Krishna is in every atom. Have you noticed that lately? That Krishna is in every atom? Well, take a look around. You can probably see him, right? Look at, I have my desk here. Oh yeah, I see him. He's in every atom. Ooh, he's also in between every atom. Amazing. How did I miss that before? You've also heard that Krishna is in everyone's heart. Have you noticed that lately when you walk down a crowded street, how Paramatma is just beeping out light in everyone's heart? Have you seen that? Did you notice that in the dog you saw yesterday, the Paramatma? Oh, you missed it. You didn't notice it. Oh, okay. That's called Maya consciousness. But if you see it, it's called Krishna consciousness. So then what is the difference between Maya and Krishna? It's not that externally anything's different. Everything is the same. The material world's the same. The spiritual world's the same. There's only one difference, consciousness. Therefore, Prabhupada said, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He never said that you're now part of the International Society for Maya Consciousness. But you could say indirectly, through our philosophy, he did explain that. We are part of the International Society for Maya Consciousness. And the International Society for Maya Consciousness simply means we don't see Krishna. Or, if we want to be graphic, not only do we not see Krishna, we decided that he doesn't belong in our life, and rather we'll replace him. That is Maya consciousness on steroids. For us as devotees, not so graphic. But I think that introduction is a bit of a summation of everything we've read so far about the nature of Maya. It's a consciousness. It's not you might say, this is Maya. It's only Maya when it's not being used for Krishna. One time Prabhupada, one devotee said to Prabhupada, this was Maya or that's Maya. And Prabhupada said, everything is Maya. But you have to take that everything and use it for Krishna, then it becomes Krishna consciousness. So that's just a simple summation of this topic. Maybe that's another way of looking at it. You can say, okay, I'm living in this world, everything is Maya. Hare Krishna to all of you. I am back. Let's see how long I last. Hopefully I won't have a coughing attack in the middle of class. I was inhaling eucalyptus steam the last few days. It seems to really have helped. When in doubt, inhale eucalyptus steam. At least if your lungs if you have a cough, you can try that. So, now let's adopt this statement by Prabhupada. another way of looking at this topic. Everything is Maya. And did you ever feel like that? Maya is so strong, Maya is everywhere, everything around me is Maya. Sometimes the brahmacharis, they'll see a beautiful woman and they'll say, this woman is Maya. And of course the women understand that the woman is neither Maya or not Maya, but it depends on the consciousness of the devotee. Now, you might say, well, no, but in the Bhagavatam says woman is Maya, or Prabhupada said woman is Maya for man, and man is Maya for woman. But was woman Maya for Thakur Haridas? No. Is woman Maya for Prabhupada? No, he engaged thousands of women in devotional service. Is woman Maya or man Maya for a man and a woman who's Krishna conscious? No. So inherent in that statement, when you make a fact, this is Maya, it means it's Maya for the ordinary person who wants to enjoy that. You know, like someone might say, oh, for me, you know, this is my big Maya, you know, climbing mountains or canoeing down a river or watching movies or whatever. And we might say, well, is the river Maya? Well, with the movie you could say, yeah, the movie's Maya. But it's not that. There are movies where you couldn't learn something that you could apply in your Krishna consciousness. So the Maya is not contained, generally it's not contained within that object. It's contained within the consciousness of the person who's relating to that object. Right? Like for some people, video games are Maya. I've never played a video game. I probably never will. And because I have no connection with it. For me, a video game is not Maya. Maybe for someone else, it's huge Maya. So it's consciousness. It's not necessarily inherent. Like we go back to the example, woman is Maya. But we're also taught the man should see woman as mother. And so when a man sees woman as mother, or a man is a preacher and women come to the classes and he's teaching them, it's not Maya, it's Krishna. So let's start with this premise. Everything is Maya and everything needs to be used for Krishna. Everything needs to be turned into Krishna consciousness. So whenever you see something and say, oh, that's Maya, then now you can think, can that be used for Krishna? Can we turn that into Krishna? Some cases you'll say, no, we can't turn it into Krishna. We can't use this. This is like heroin. I can't use that for Krishna. It's intoxication. Okay. But at least we can see it as an energy of Krishna and we can keep at a distance from it. So for us, using it for Krishna is not using it, if that makes sense. It's staying at a distance from it, but at least seeing this is Krishna's energy, which he created for a purpose, for people who want to remain in this world and remain intoxicated. So Krishna created facility for that, for them. So we can see it from a Krishna conscious perspective. Why does it exist? Well, just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur said something really interesting. He was talking about bogus gurus. And so if a guru is not bona fide, if a guru is cheating his disciples, if he's not speaking proper siddhanta, he's not following the rules and regulations of Shastra, then we'd say he's a bogus guru. We use that word, bogus guru. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that bogus gurus are necessary because they're bogus people. And bogus people want bogus gurus. Therefore, Krishna creates bogus gurus for bogus people, so both the guru and those persons can enjoy or exploit the material world because that's what they want to do. So The bogus people get provided with their own poison, and the bogus gurus have many clients. Okay, so we can't engage the bogus guru in Krishna consciousness directly. Of course, we can tell people this person is a bogus guru for these reasons, but we can also see it in a Krishna conscious way, correct? As I just explained it. So even it's something you can't use for Krishna, but you can see it from a Krishna conscious perspective, and therefore you've taken something which is Maya, which can't be used for Krishna, but at least you're able to see it from a Krishna conscious perspective. So in that way, everything is depending. Everything can be seen in relation to Krishna. Not necessarily utilized. Many things can be utilized. But everything can be seen in relation to Krishna and somehow seen philosophically. And if you do that, then in your life there's no Maya. And if you say, today I was in Maya, what does that mean? That means you could not see how to use what was in your life in Krishna's service. Or you could see it, but you weren't using it in Krishna's service. Or you were trying to enjoy something that was meant for Krishna's service. That's Maya. So now, I just spoke for 15 minutes, and I will summarize my 15-minute talk introduction. Where you see Krishna, there's no Maya. Where you see Maya, there is no Krishna. Even if Krishna is there, you can remove him. Isn't that interesting? You can remove Krishna from where he exists by consciousness. Okay, so now, what are some examples of this? I think Duryodhana, he was an example because Krishna showed him his universal form. It's kind of like saying, Duryodhana, do you know who you're dealing with? Like, you should listen to me because, after all, I'm God. And as God, I know better than you do. And Duryodhana is, no, I don't want to listen to you. Hear those birds? Can you hear them? They're singing a new song. I haven't heard that song before. Maybe they're happy because fall is coming and it's not so hot. So, you get these examples, like Dhritarashtra, also Duryodhana's father. You get these really good examples of perfect advice being given to people, and even sometimes they're saying, I know what you're saying is true, but I can't do it. So therefore, you're taking Krishna consciousness and you're turning it into Maya consciously. Have you ever done that? Some friend has said, you shouldn't do this, or you should do that, and you said, yeah, I know, but I just want to do it. So like you're taking a Krishna conscious advice and refusing it and saying, I'm going to do the opposite. So that happens. It's all throughout the Shastra where foolish people, like Sukracharya also, his disciple Bali Maharaj wants to surrender. And he's saying, no, don't do it. So Sukracharya previously said you should surrender to Krishna, but now in this situation, he thought if Bali surrenders to Krishna, I won't have a job. And how am I going to pay the bills? So he turned that whole situation into Maya. It's amazing, right? Can you believe it? So you have two things. Either it's Maya and we don't turn it into Krishna, or it's Krishna and we turn it into Maya. And our job as devotees is that everything should be turned into Krishna. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because even the Krishna conscious things, because they can be turned into Maya, we even have to turn sometimes, so to speak, turn the Krishna conscious things into Krishna consciousness. At least we have to be aware or be conscious that we can turn Krishna consciousness into Maya. Like Giri Swami said. He said that to Prabhupada. He said, sometimes you're in a situation, it's Krishna conscious, but you become proud and it turns into Maya. And then Prabhupada joked with him. That was Giri Swami's realization. Like it's, you do something Krishna conscious, everything's good, then you become proud, and then it turns into Maya. And Prabhupada was kind of said something so funny. He said, no, you're always in Maya, and sometimes you fall in. No, Giri Swami said, and then you fall into Maya. Prabhupada said, sometimes, he said, you're always in Maya, sometimes you fall into Krishna. So, however you want to slice the bread, we have to turn everything into Krishna, even the Krishna conscious things, just like for example. Hare Krishna. Like how easy it is to offend or criticize someone, which is not the behavior of a devotee, especially criticize a devotee. And there's a devotee, and a devotee does something, and you're like, why did that devotee do that? Why do devotees do that? That's not right. It's so easy, right? And that devotee was just engaged in devotional service, and you were in the temple, and everything was Krishna conscious, and you just turned it into Maya by criticizing him. So I think if we made a list of all the ways we turn Krishna into Maya, we might faint, because there's many things we turn into Maya, isn't it? Okay, I won't make you make the list. It would be and if you make you can make your own list. I won't make you read it. It might be embarrassing, but think about how we turn something which is Krishna conscious into Maya. Interesting, right? Okay, that was my introduction. And I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. I didn't notice if there are any comments, and said hello to all of you, responding to your hellos to me. And yes, I'm back in action. Not 100% better, but we're testing if I'm enough better to talk for an hour and a half. It's easier when it's translated. I only have to talk half the time. So today's the test, and we'll determine by the end of the class if I can continue. Well, like we're saying, you can turn everything into Krishna or turn Krishna into Maya. That's because Krishna gave us independence. So, and then this, this question always comes up. Why, if Krishna wants us and loves us, why did he create a situation where we could forget him, where we could turn Krishna into Maya? He shouldn't have done that. And then someone may say, well, if you take the philosophy, no, we weren't with Krishna, we just appeared in the material world. We chose to come here. And why did we chose to come here? Why did we choose to come here? We chose to come here. We have chosen to come here because we wanted to explore this world. And so Krishna says, well, okay, that's what you want to do. It's all yours. Here's your playground. And then we suffer, and then we think, why did Krishna let us do that? But remember, that choice was ours. And if Krishna didn't give us that choice, we would have been really angry and upset. No, I want to be independent. No, but Krishna won't let me. I don't like him. We think, oh, it's so bad he gave us independence. He gave it to us because that's what we wanted. And if he didn't give it to us, we would be upset. I mean, that's just the reality. So we can't pretend, he really shouldn't have given it to us. That was a bad choice. Now look at the mess we're in. No, we created the mess because we wanted to try. You ever try to do something you're not good at, and it's like the machine blows up, or you cut your finger or something? Well, that's one way to understand you're not good at this, and you should probably hire a professional to do it. So Krishna, he's trying to show us, this imitation God thing, you're not really good at it because it's not really working out. I mean, God doesn't get depressed, and God doesn't suffer, and you've gone through, and God doesn't take birth due to the laws of karma, and that's your situation. So imitating God is not working out for you. And this is what you wanted, and I let you do it, and I knew the only way you would understand that it's not going to work out is to do it, because I couldn't explain it to you. You wouldn't understand it. So we as devotees who are wise, we understand Krishna gave us the independence so we could experience that it doesn't work. So we shouldn't be so foolish to try to continually make it work when it doesn't, and when the whole purpose of Krishna letting us try to make it work is so we realize it doesn't work. So this endless pursuit of sense gratification is a sign of foolishness, not only for non-devotees, but especially a sign of foolishness for devotees. But non-devotees don't know. So you can't really blame them per se. I mean, the laws of karma will blame them, but you can't blame them per se because they haven't realized, they haven't understood. They're not there yet. We've understood it. We understood it even before we read Bhagavad Gita, and that's why when we read it, it made sense. So if anyone's to blame, it's us. We understand this. So Krishna's purpose has been fulfilled in us becoming devotees. So now once you become a devotee, to continue to exploit and explore material world and material enjoyment beyond what is healthy for your bhakti, it doesn't make any sense. You already did that. That's the whole purpose of doing that, is to bring you to surrender. So now that you've surrendered, you don't need to do that anymore. You already understand. You've got the result of it. And maybe if you're battling with this idea that, but I still have this propensity to enjoy, I'm still dull-headed, maybe you can think that Krishna is talking to you and saying, look I've already showed you this doesn't work. That's my mercy. So now you can focus fully on your bhakti and go back to Godhead in this life. That's the idea. Does that make sense? So please don't blame Krishna for your independence. The independence was required to come to the point that we could become Krishna conscious. And if we want to become Krishna conscious, then the independence is required so we can choose to serve Krishna. So independence is always required. As I've said before, the independence that got you in trouble is the very independence that will get you out of the material world. So, if we say, Krishna shouldn't have given me independence, well, it's too late for that. And the fact that you're Jiva soul, by constitution you have independence, but you can celebrate because with your independence, You can do bhakti. So your independence now is a good thing. And if you misuse your independence, it's a bad thing. So don't use your independence for a bad thing, because you can use it for a good thing. So it's good we have independence as long as we don't misuse it. Right? Krishna gave you independence. Celebrate. Now you can serve him. You don't have to serve Maya. That with your independence, you can use your independence and say, I don't have to serve Maya. Krishna has given me independence, so I don't have to serve Maya. And we're saying, oh, I wish I didn't have independence because I misuse it. No. Don't be stupid. Krishna's given you independence to use it for his service. And then you misuse it for your sense gratification. At this point, in your sojourn in the material world, after understanding that you can't be happy any other way, still doing that? Not smart. Not smart. And if you're not smart, then you have to suffer to become smart. But if you're smart, you don't have to suffer because you're already smart. Right? So we have a question. I don't know if it relates to this, and we may have to answer it later. I've just experienced a horrible, dishonest, ugly behavior from a devotee who is a teacher and a Brahmin. Can't stop thinking about it, and my biggest fear is to become disappointed in the method and devotees. Please help me. Hare Krishna. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, since we're talking about Maya, I guess this kind of underscores the point. I think one of the problems, I don't know if the word is problem, but let's just say situation. When someone becomes a devotee, they're not really to be considered devotees. They're meant to be considered a person who wants to be a devotee, who is practicing devotional service. So they're a devotee in practice, right? So what does a devotee in practice mean? It means a devotee in practice is one who has accepted Krishna as God, has accepted Prabhupada as the Jagat Guru, has accepted Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, intellectually accepts this, and has agreed to the best of their ability to follow the principles. Everyone will follow according to their conviction and their ability. But what's important to understand, and I think that not just for you, Elena, but for everyone, because we all run into this situation, maybe not to the extent that you do, but we all have been disappointed by devotees. Slight disappointments. Some of us only slightly disappointed. We expected a certain behavior that we thought was indicative of a sadhu, and it wasn't perfectly executed. Maybe partially executed, but something was missing, but not like a major fault. But still we're disappointed. Or maybe in your case, a major fault, or a major transgression, or a fall down, or something deplorable. Or what was the word you used? Dishonest, ugly, horrible, yeah. So, in this state, which could last for decades, the devotee is acting as a devotee, trying to be a devotee, but is actually a conditioned soul practicing devotional service. And I think I'm not saying this to justify anyone's bad behavior, but I'm saying it to point out that when we say this is a devotee, how could this devotee do that? If we say this is a conditioned soul trying to be a devotee, then we understand, okay, he was overcome by his conditioning. And some of us are more conditioned than others. It's just a fact. Now, Elena, something you'll see, and I've seen this clearly, and it's a little bit sad, but I know devotees who are extremely nice and extremely sincere and extremely conditioned. And what that means is their sincerity and their intention doesn't always match up to what you would expect their actions to be. So, well, if a devotee's that sincere and their intention is so strong, you would expect actions to look like ABC. But then you see them acting, and it doesn't make sense how they're acting. That's the conditioned side. And some devotees they come to Krishna consciousness conditioned with certain bad habits, some anger we've seen. I'll just tell you what I've seen, because I think this is an important point, and I think it's I hope this will help you, but we can talk privately if you want, because I could probably help you more deal with the particulars. But this is a general answer. You can see how this helps. These are things I've seen amongst devotees. Intense anger, becoming extremely angry with another devotee over what some may consider a minor mistake. Sometimes some may consider not even a mistake, just a preference a person had that wasn't met, and then this devotee became extremely angry, like uncontrollably angry. We see that very good devotees, and I'm here describing, Elena, I'm describing really good devotees, like people who are dear to Prabhupada. I'm just describing what I've seen. There was another one, very, very powerful, and he had challenges with pride. He had challenges with being honored. He had challenges with being loved. Like if people challenged him, he couldn't deal with it. If people didn't submit to him, he couldn't deal with it. It's like, okay, you don't submit to me, go to another zone. You had, even if you were like a god brother, you had to kind of be a bit like a disciple. It was like unhealthy and excessive. And you'd look at it and you would think, and with the anger issue also, you would think, this is uncommon even amongst non-devotees. I don't see this kind of pride. We do see it, and we do see this anger, but it's not so common that, we are, it's like, if you don't do whatever I say, we can't be friends. Kind of that thing, my way or the highway. And though we do see it in the material world, but we've seen it very intensely sometimes amongst devotees, and we look at it and we think, we just get confused, we could get discouraged. How is it that this devotee who's done so much service, who's so dear to Prabhupada, is acting this way? Another common thing we've seen, and Prabhupada describes this and there are stories in Shastra of this, of illicit relationships between men and women, between men who were very good devotees. Unfortunately, it even happened with some of our gurus, and these are good, like people who were strict, Mangalarti every day, 16 rounds every day, serving like 12 to 16 hours a day, sleeping 4 or 5 hours, just like amazing devotees, but challenged due to past karma, challenged by their attraction to the opposite sex. And they tried to give it up. They tried to surrender. They tried to take sannyas, and then one day they succumb to that attraction. And you look at that, and You're like so disappointed. Everyone's disappointed. And Elena, could you imagine if you were a disciple? You're upset with this devotee. Could you imagine you were a disciple of that person who left his position as a guru to go off with a woman, or to go off with a woman because he had already gotten her pregnant previously, in saffron with a dunda, in the position of guru? This has happened. It's not, and don't think it's like ISKCON is unique. It's described in our Shastras. It happens. Maybe not commonly, but it happens. It's the material world. So we don't obviously expect these things, especially from our leaders. You might expect it from younger devotees, people who are just coming. This devotee's struggling. He doesn't have any position over anyone, so he might mistreat one devotee here or there. You don't expect it from a leader who can mistreat many devotees, or who can let down many devotees. But it happens due to conditioning. Now you could say, but shouldn't we control the conditioning? And the answer is yes, but sometimes conditioning is very, very deep. And sometimes the leaders become influenced by the adoring followers. And they start to feel they're invincible. They start to feel they're better than others. They become extremely proud. And as it said, pride comes before a fall. So that's one of the reasons. Another thing that I saw, I was, these are stories I personally witnessed. I was involved with. Not involved in the crime, but involved in witnessing the crime. One of our leaders, who I was spending some time with, who I thought was extremely transcendental because he hardly slept. He would stay up all night chanting or doing something. Just like amazing. I later found out he was taking amphetamines or something to keep himself awake at night. And I think the reason he was taking amphetamines is because he was taking other drugs that would have put him to sleep all day. Hare Krishna. And this was also another devotee dear to Prabhupada. And a lot of these things happened a few years after Prabhupada left because they were so dependent on Prabhupada. And he just allowed himself to, he had to become proud also. He had become offensive. And he allowed himself to go down that route. So as conditioned souls, these things happen. Now, this doesn't do anything for the fact that this person you're talking about either hurt you or other devotees or both of you. And as I said, all I can do is apologize that you had to go through this. And if I can help you in any way deal with it, let me know. But in general, when we see misbehavior, I'm not saying this now you're all going to go out and look for misbehavior in seniors. It's not common. But if we see misbehavior, we understand, here's a conditioned soul. They're challenged with anger, or by nature they're insensitive people. Or we had one devotee, again, very sincere devotee, who had, we could say, trouble with reality. Actually, trouble admitting reality. He would say things that weren't true, but he believed them. It's like this kind of cognitive dissonance. Like you can't admit something about yourself because it's too painful. It doesn't fit within the way you see yourself. I've talked about this before. In fact, we did a workshop about this. But some people have this problem is they can't be objective about themselves because they have a certain image of themselves. And what they really are is different from that image. So they'll tell you what they're like, and they'll say things, and it's not true. but that's actually how they see themselves. And so they don't notice they're not like that. So we had a leader like that, and he would say things, and everybody would think, what is he talking about? He doesn't do what he's saying. He does the opposite of what he's saying. And we would all see that he totally believed what he was saying, because that was his vision of himself. So that is a conditioning that he brought with him. And I could go down lists and lists of conditionings. Immaturity. So we've gone through anger. We've gone through lust. We've gone through lying. We've gone through pride. You know, do you want to go down the list? Envy, competition. Yeah, we can go down the list. Yeah. And the problem, Elaine, is that sometimes we don't notice it because we're doing it for Krishna. I'm lying for Krishna. I'm stealing for Krishna. I'm proud for Krishna. I'm getting angry for Krishna. And we don't notice that it's a contamination. So just to understand, there are a lot of sincere devotees with a lot of conditioning. And if the conditioning is strong, they'll eventually act on it, and you'll see it. And you won't appreciate it because you'll be thinking, this is not how a devotee should act. And you're right, it's not. And even that person who acted that way may later apologize and say, I shouldn't have acted that way. That's not how a devotee acts. But I acted that way in that situation because of my conditioning. We do it all the time. All of us. Not just those devotees. It's just they did something horrible. Yeah. That's a generalized answer, but I think it's helpful for all of us. That maybe our expectations might be too high. And of course, you'll say, but if a person is a temple president, shouldn't they be ideal? I'd like to say yes, but temple presidents in our movement are not trained. And a lot of times, temple presidents are doing that service and they don't want to do it. It's just no one else will do it. And a lot of those who are doing it because no one else can do it would be happy, very, very happy not to do it, and will be the first to admit they're not qualified for the job, but there's no one to do it, so they do it. Should GBC be more qualified and exemplary? Yes, of course. GBC is also similar. We don't have a lot of devotees who are capable of being GBCs, and many of the GBC men would prefer not to be. And many of the GBC men will admit, I'm not a good manager. I probably could set a better example, but I'm very independent. I like to be alone all morning. I don't always come to the morning program. You know what to do. They're doing it the best they can. And should the guru be exemplary? Yes, 100%, no question. Don't become a guru if you can't set the proper example. That I don't think we can compromise on that. But again, we're individuals. We have nature. So, one guru may be very, very conservative, one very liberal, one more strict than another, one funny, one serious, one very soft, one very hard. It's their nature. So you might say, well, a guru should be soft, he should be serious, he should be... But we're also persons, so we have to take that in consideration. And those personal traits are not necessarily faults. It's the nature of that individual. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, you should find a guru who matches your nature. So if you're a very, very serious person, very, very strict, tend to be very traditional, then you probably would do best with a guru who has that nature. If your nature is that you're a very soft person, very generous, forgiving, kind, compassionate, you might find it hard being around a guru who's always chastising you and chastising your God siblings. It's just a fact. It's just a reality. We've seen this, that sometimes some disciples are challenged by gurus who are sometimes heavy with them or with others. So these are things to consider. This is just a reality. Like I said, if you want to talk more, we can. And I can try to help you deal with this. Gopinath says his list of turning Krishna into Maya would be eternal. Yeah, it's an interesting question. All the things we turn in, all the Krishna conscious things we turn into Maya. Yeah, good title. Let's title the class how we turning. Maybe we'll do a daily video. Turning Krishna into Maya. All I have to do is find a pencil that works. Okay. I make notes of these ideas, and then weeks later I look at them and I start scratching my head. I go, what does that mean? I have to remember the context. I couldn't make any daily videos because I couldn't really talk. All right, I wanted to save my voice. Hare Krishna. Well, I haven't coughed yet, but I have to see if giving class is going to make me cough more today than I coughed yesterday. And if not, then we're good to go. Magic tea and eucalyptus steam. Winning combo. Okay, turning Krishna into Maya. Brajananda says, how do you know if you're turning Krishna into Maya? I'll give you an interesting answer. By how you feel. Do you feel detached? Do you feel inspired? Do you feel attached, uninspired? How do you feel at the end of the day? If you feel Krishna conscious at the end of the day, then you weren't turning Krishna into Maya. You were turning Maya into Krishna. Or turning Krishna into more Krishna. But I think there's some obvious... well, let me explain it this way. If you're using anything in Krishna consciousness to further your sense gratification, then you've turned Krishna into Maya. So, what does that mean? Okay. Let me use my position as an example. So I call you up, Brajananda, and say, can you do this for me? And you go, well, I'm not in Alachua and this and that. And I say, don't you know who I am? Don't you know how many disciples I have? Don't you know how long I've been a devotee? Who are you to say no to me? So now I'm kind of making you feel guilty and turning you into a slave by using my power of position to force you to do something that is really inconvenient for you because you have to come here to do it. So now I've just turned something, by using my position, turned something which could have been service. Okay, can you help me in this service? And you say, unfortunately, I can't. I'm not in Alachua, etc. And so now I'm going to use this for to in some way exploit you, or more directly, engage you in doing something that is not for Krishna service, but it's really for my convenience or comfort. So that, or sometimes it's not so subtle. You lead a kirtan, Brajananda, and everybody's telling you what a great kirtan that is. And you're thinking, if you're honest, you might be thinking, you know what? I like to be praised when I do kirtan. You know what? Half the reason I do kirtan, or 30%, is to get the praise. Maybe 25%, 10%. I'm going to make a recording of kirtan, and then it'll go viral. And I'll become famous. What about that? I'm going to give a class. I've studied this topic. I'm going to give this class, and I'm going to send it all my friends and tell them to send it all their friends and tell their friends, send it all their friends. So I want to make it on YouTube. I want to be somebody. I want people to know I'm somebody because I have something to say. So what's going on there? Right. Now you're being motivated by pride. So you've taken something Krishna conscious, a kirtan, a class, and you're thinking, excuse me, you're thinking how I can become famous in ISKCON for giving this class. Okay, you want a worse one, Brajananda? Okay, here's a worse one. I'm going to do all the above. And don't think this hasn't happened. I'm going to do all the above, well, the two things above, so I can attract a woman. Because I'll be a kirtan star, I'll be a YouTube star, and then the number of women who want to marry me will increase. Don't think those things don't happen. Now, you might say, no, that doesn't happen. It happens on a subtle level. And sometimes it's so subtle that the person who's doing it doesn't even realize they're doing it. You want to hear a joke? I don't know how much truth there is. This one devotee, he's really funny. He was a sannyasi at the time. He said, you know why you should take sannyas? So you can get a good wife. He said, because once you take sannyas, all the women want to marry you. You become more attractive. He was speaking from personal experience, that he could see women were more attracted to him once he became a sannyasi. So, yeah. There was this guy, I don't know if he was a devotee or what. He was not in ISKCON. He was extremely austere. Did all kinds of tapasya, chanted so many rounds. And so one person once asked him, how is it that you can do this kind of austerity? And he said, because if I do this in my next life, I'll go to the heavenly planets and I'll enjoy beautiful apsaras. Everyone was shocked. He seemed externally like this amazing sadhu, very austere. And his whole motive was that, according to Shastra, if he did all these things, he could go to a higher planet and enjoy these beautiful women. And that was the whole reason he was doing it. So, sometimes subtle, but sometimes it's not subtle to other people. Sometimes other people can see it. Sometimes the person can't see it, but other people can see it. Yeah. Anyway, I'll let you think about it, Brajananda. And then if you think about it enough, you'll start to see. And then you'll start to see how you can turn Krishna into Maya. I think offending devotees is one. Just being in the Sangha, but having a detrimental effect. Okay, it's time. I have to move back a little because the sun is on me. But then if I move back, okay, hold on. We're going to bring you all closer. Ta-da. I'm doing this with one hand. Okay, we're going to get more intimate so I can sit back a little bit. Okay. Krishna Consciousness says, I wonder if we can really examine if you are Krishna conscious. We may think we are, but we might be totally in Maya. We may also lie ourselves. We are Krishna conscious. Yeah. There are some objective ways you can understand your Krishna consciousness. Quality of your rounds, the number of your rounds. I'm not saying that's absolute. How much you're eating, how much you're sleeping, what is coming out of your mouth, what is going in your ears. You know, what went in your ears yesterday? How much Krishna Katha went in your ears? How much gossip went in your ears? How much information about politics? And in America, we have an election coming up, which, whenever there's election, it absorbs everybody, and there's so much in the news, what the prince is doing, what's the royal family doing, what's this movie star doing. So there are ways you can objectify it. What were you thinking when you were chanting japa? What were you spending time doing? Did you have service that you didn't do because you got sidetracked into looking at whatever? So you can objectify it. There may be things that are too subtle, but then I would say, if there are things that are too subtle, it just requires more honesty. And the more honest you are, the more you can see, and the more you can see, the more you can correct. Right? So I might think I'm Krishna conscious because I'm chanting more rounds. But then I would ask you, what are you thinking about when you chant your rounds? Oh, I'm thinking about pakoras and halava, and I'm worrying about all these material things and my investments in the stock market. And so if you start analyzing, it's like, oh, I'm turning my japa into complete Maya, just a worrying session about all these things in my life. So then if you're honest, you admit it, and then now you can correct it. Because if you're not honest and you don't admit it, how are you going to correct it? So yes, it's, But one thing, Krishna Consciousness, if you actually look at our acharyas, for them, it's really, they're so much the opposite of us. Because for them, they do, they forget Krishna for a nanosecond in 24 hours, and they're beating themselves. Oh, I'm so bad. I'm not Krishna conscious. For that nanosecond, I forgot Krishna. How could I do that? What's wrong with me? I'm so bad. How will I ever become Krishna conscious? They are so the opposite of us. They're so aware when they're not Krishna conscious. And we, unfortunately, are not so aware. And we need to be more like them. Like the gopis. Oh, we blinked our eyes. We didn't see Krishna. Well, how long were you looking at Krishna yesterday? Your deities or pictures or whatever. And how long were you looking at other things? So if we start to think like acharyas and, every little, what did Lord Chaitanya? Lord Chaitanya said, the proof I don't have love of Krishna is that Krishna's not here and I'm alive. Because if I had love, I would have died out of separation. So of course, I wouldn't expect you to think exactly like that, but you could get some inspiration from that. How, I seem to go through my days somewhat happy and satisfied, even on those days where I'm like just kind of joking around with my friends for hours and not really Krishna conscious. Where Lord Chaitanya is saying, I'm still alive, that's a problem. And for us, forgetting Krishna for hours in a day is not a problem. We don't even notice it. So, has anyone noticed the fact that we're still alive and that's a problem? That we should have died. If we had love, we would have died. Have any of you noticed that to be a problem in your life? Look at me, I'm going to eat breakfast after class. What's wrong with me, I'm maintaining this body and I don't have love of Krishna. What a waste. what a bad devotee I am. Okay, we're not going to think like that, but we can get a clue that we could think, okay, what am I doing? How absorbed am I? What service am I doing? What am I contributing? How's my time being utilized? What am I thinking about when I chant my rounds? What's in my heart? What about all these devotees that I'm envious of? What about all these devotees I'm criticizing? You can look and you can evaluate yourself where it's not so subtle. Start where it's not so subtle. Just kind of obvious. Yeah, well, okay. Here's another list you don't want to make. Make a list of all the devotees you criticized last month. If I make the list, I'll go into a state of depression, and I'll need a therapist to cure me. I can't do that. Yeah, probably that's some truth to that, right? Write down everything you said that wasn't really nice about a devotee last month. So the goal is, Prabhu, there's nothing on my list. Okay, write down everything nice you said about devotee. Let me think. I'm going to need some time to think about this. So turning japa into Maya, I think I already did a daily quote on that. So there are objectifications, detachment. Am I detached from frivolities or attached to frivolities? How much time do I spend in frivolous talk and frivolous action? These things are not subtle, so you can evaluate. And I often think that every minute we waste is a minute we could have used in service, right? And we all have so much service. There's so much we can do. So I think that's a way to objectify. And in fact, Krishna Consciousness, there's a really nice statement. I think it's by Jiva Goswami. He said that, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there are 8 symptoms of bhava. They're called asta, sattvika bhava. And there's like crying, hair standing on end, choking of the voice, rolling on the ground, and so forth. And Jiva Goswami said, any good actor could imitate those. So I could come into the temple and sit down for japa class and say, okay, here it is. I'm going to win the honor of everyone. And so I put some chilies up my nose, and actually we were told that some person of this stature actually did that. And people would think, oh, he's crying. He's chanting and he's crying. So I have the chilies up my nose. I'm chanting japa. Hare Krishna. And everyone's looking, oh, Mahatma Prabhu. He's experiencing bhava. I always knew he was holding those symptoms in, but now he can't control them. And I'm looking up my eye, inside of my eye, going, it's working. So Jiva Goswami said, these symptoms of ecstasy can be imitated by anybody. But there's another list of 10 symptoms or 9 symptoms of bhava, which are actions. Like humility, like not wasting a moment, things like that, which you can validate by externally. So Jiva Goswami said, that is the list by which we evaluate someone on the level of bhava, not the ecstasy. Because the second list, you can't really imitate being engaged 24/7 in Krishna's service. You can't really, if you're imitating humility, everybody knows you're imitating. And if you're actually humble, we can see it. So there are standards by which we can see through my actions if I'm actually detached, if I'm actually engaging 24/7, if my ears are hearing, if my tongue is speaking, and so forth, what I'm thinking about, who I'm criticizing, and so forth. So look for more practical symptoms in the beginning and work your way to the more subtle. I have a question which is on my mind for 2 weeks now. As you said, Krishna gave us independence. I heard at the temple that it is good to be afraid of Krishna when we do something bad. As a result of our independence, because as conditioned souls, we then are afraid to commit offenses. But it doesn't work for me. I sometimes feel afraid when my sadhana slips the wrong way, and the fear restricts me in becoming better. How should we interpret the fear then if Krishna is never judging us or turning his back on us? Well, what Prabhupada said, I never heard Prabhupada say we should be afraid of Krishna. He said, our problem is we're not afraid of Maya. I mean, we should be afraid of being in Maya. We should be afraid of playing with Maya. That's what Prabhupada said. I guess also, you could say we should be afraid of not following what Krishna wants us to follow. But I think perhaps the problem is that your definition of fear or your experience of fear and the speaker's definition and experience of fear are probably different. So when he says you should be, or she says you should be afraid of Krishna, meaning you should be afraid of disobeying Krishna because of the consequences, which in a sense is saying that we should be afraid of Maya. Connotations, of fears in your life and so forth are probably causing the problem. Your experience with fear and his are probably different. So you would have to think of fear in a positive way, like I should be afraid to get too close to the fire because I could burn myself. I should be afraid to get too close to the ledge because I could slip over. I should be afraid to jump in the deep end of the pool because I don't know how to swim. That's a healthy kind of fear. So if you can see fear in a healthy way, as something that would prevent you from doing something wrong, maybe that would help. Because that's the idea. So have a healthy fear of Maya, have a healthy fear of doing the wrong thing. I wouldn't necessarily want to live my life with the fear that Krishna is going to punish me. But personally, how I see it is that the fear I have is the fear of doing something wrong because I don't want to displease Prabhupada. And also the other fear is that I will suffer if I do something wrong. And it's not like Krishna doesn't have to punish me. Material nature is set to punish us when we do something wrong. And that's how Krishna works. He's not involved. But if Krishna is really kind upon you and he wants to help you, then he may interfere in some way and push you towards him because of your neglect. But I wouldn't see it in, or maybe you saw it in like a Christian sense that, God's going to send me to hell type thing. I'm not sure how you saw it. But I tend to see it as I'm just hurting my own self. I never really brought Krishna so much into the picture, although you could. I was more like afraid of my own self, that if I do this, I'll forget Krishna. And in the Bhagavatam, it said that the biggest fear of a devotee is to forget Krishna. And so, if I do the wrong thing, then I'm thinking, if I do this, I'll forget Krishna. And that's my biggest fear. So if that doesn't help you, you're going to have to write me personally. Hare Krishna Neha. Just going to ask, and you explained it so perfectly. Oh, okay. Yeah, these are things that are on people's minds. Understand it can be so tough, but I'm sure that for each bad example, we can find many more good and wonderful examples which will feed our faith. Yeah, it's true. And if nothing else works, we can always use the perfect example of Prabhupada. Yeah. None of us are pure as Prabhupada, and that's why we make mistakes. But I'm sure most of us are trying as best we can. It is, I think, one of the saving graces of ISKCON. If we see problems in ISKCON, one of the things we can do, and sometimes when you see problems, it can be discouraging because you expect better. We can say, but at least we have Prabhupada, the perfect teacher and the perfect example. And so we have a society with a perfect captain. Maybe sometimes we fall short of following him perfectly, but the captain remains perfect. And like Tanya said, yes, even those who set bad examples also do good things, and sometimes that can help us. I think it depends what that person did and how serious the offense is. It's harder to focus on the good example if the offense was so serious that it damaged somebody's life. That's the hard part, when lives are damaged. Anyway, through the events in our lives, we are forced to become more tolerant. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that if something wrong was done, that we don't recognize it, especially if it's necessary to do something about it. Devotee in progress. We're making a t-shirt. It's called Sadhu in Progress. We already have the t-shirt. It should be up on the website. We're going to release the website of the t-shirts. We have 8 t-shirts so far, and each in 8 colors. Is our expectations at fault, not the other devotees per se? Yes and no. In some cases, yes, we're expecting a devotee who is not superhuman to be superhuman. In some cases, I think, like with what Elaine is saying, I don't think she was expecting him to be superhuman. She was expecting him to be honest. Maybe she was expecting him to be like a nice, ordinary, moral person. Perhaps he wasn't. I don't know the details. But in some cases, yes, the devotee is acting well, but you expect more. And this also can become a problem when you have expectations when you're getting married, when you have expectations when you're joining a business, in a friendship, in expectations of a guru or a Siksha guru that are not clear. And because if they're clear, then you know what to expect and not to expect. And then you could decide, if this is what this person can offer, I don't want to be in that relationship because I expect more from that relationship. So that's fine. So you make that relation. You don't have that relationship with that person because they can't give you what you need. But to expect that they would give it to you without knowing whether they could or would or are able, that creates a problem. So expectations are normal, but sometimes unrealistic. And you may have an expectation for this guru, or this husband, or this wife, which is realistic for this guru or husband or wife, but not realistic for that husband or guru or wife. Oh, the Sadhu t-shirt is being uploaded. It is called Sadhu in Progress, and then under it is something like inconvenience. What does it say? Inconvenience regretted. These are signs in America. Work in progress, it's a construction zone. Inconvenience regretted, or we apologize for the inconvenience. Apologies for. So it's like, I'm a sadhu in progress. I'm not perfect. I apologize, or I think, what do we say? Apologize for the offenses or something. I apologize for the inconvenience caused. Yeah, I'm going to cause you trouble because I'm not perfect. So I think these are all valid points, Christe. But not knowing the details of Elena's situation, and I get the feeling it was more than just a minor transgression. And if it's more than a minor transgression, and it has caused some serious problems in the lives of devotees, then it has to be recognized as that. With tolerance, with compassion, but at the same time. Let's say it this way. If you are going to become a leader ever in your life, then you should expect more of yourself in that position, for sure. Sometimes devotees have asked me to do something or say something, and I would think that if I weren't a guru, I think it would be okay, but as a guru, I don't want to do this because there's a standard that maybe would be acceptable for others, but as a guru, most people would think it's okay, but some people wouldn't, and I want to be conscious of that. And I think for any leader, it's good to be conscious that you're a leader and your behavior is being watched and maybe exemplified. So you have to be careful. Sadhu in progress. And what's the next line under sadhu in progress? Inconvenience regretted. Okay, Elena. So the answer helped Elena. That's good. Jyotirmayi says, Jyotirmayi means full of light. Krishna has been so merciful with me. He gave me my Guru Maharaj that we were so much alike. Oh yeah. I heard a story. This is funny. You can tell me if this is true, Jyotirmayi. Your Guru Maharaj was in Radhadesh, and I think there was some... you may not have been there, but you could tell me if this is true. I guess there was some kind of festival, and different leaders were giving classes. So your Guru Maharaj was coming to give class after Bhakti Chiraswami gave class. So Bhakti Chiraswami was leaving with his disciples, and your Guru Maharaj was coming in with his disciples. Bhakti Chiraswami was leaving, lots of Indians, like that, And then your Guru Maharaj comes in and, his disciples, tattoos, rings, hair in 12 different colors and like graphic difference. Is that true? Or was that just a joke? Was that an exaggerated joke? There's some truth to it. Like attracts like, yeah. The more liberal Western, how should we say, funny, extremely funny, incredible, like rock star kirtan, attracts certain people. And we're all different, and we all attract different people. And I think it's good that there's so many different gurus that people can find gurus that they can relate to. Yeah. So Jyotirmayi is going to confirm if half of Maharaj's disciples, if not all, have tattoos, rings, and dyed hair. Well, one of the three, or maybe there's something else, right? Or they're into rock and roll. One of the three. Maharaj was once leading a kirtan, and he has this melody. It's pretty much like a rock and roll melody, as many of his melodies are. And he started, before he was singing, and he turned to me and said, I tried to do the traditional melodies, but it doesn't work for me. Somehow they don't come out of me. I feel the same way often. Well, tomorrow I have a meeting, so we won't have class tomorrow, okay? But the real test of my cough is after the class. I can tell if it's been agitated. This tea helps a lot. This is called throat tea. It's got some herb from Peru or something in it that seems to be very good for me. Don't mayanize Krishna. Oh yeah, we had that class. Don't mayanize Krishna. Yeah, well that's that we're having the same class. Don't mayanize Krishna. I probably already wrote that down. Yeah, I think it's interesting because when you first become a devotee, it's not obvious that you can mayanize Krishna. You can create Maya out of Krishna. It's just you're in Krishna consciousness and everything is blissful. You can't imagine that there's Maya. I remember when I was a young devotee, Hridayananda Maharaj was also, I think, he moved in the temple, I think, November, and I moved in January. And I remember him saying, I don't know if he was saying to a non-devotee or to devotees, he said, Maya is not allowed in the doors of our temple. They're locked. She's locked out of the temple. It's only Krishna. And that's kind of how we felt. And we couldn't imagine that Maya could enter. And then Prabhupada said something, and you've all heard this, but I think something what will help you understand a little bit about what Prabhupada said if you understand the context. All these things that you hear that Prabhupada said, when he said them for us, it was the first time in the history of ISKCON we heard these things. And now, I'll say something like, Maya, Krishna, Maya will not stop the movement from without, she'll stop it from within. We've all heard this, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. But could you imagine, you're living in a movement, and like Hridayananda Maharaj said, your realization is Maya is locked out of the temple. There's only Krishna, there's no Maya. And then Prabhupada says, only this movement can be destroyed from within by you. So Prabhupada just turned our world upside down because we lived in a different world. And so although that statement, when you hear it now, may sound like, oh yeah, that makes sense. For us, that was a shockwave, that we could actually be in Maya and we could bring Maya into the movement. And then I believe it was Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada dropped another bomb, and you may have read this. And this is really a bomb because when misinterpreted and misapplied, it can create havoc. He said there are many demons in the Krishna Consciousness movement in the disguise of devotees, something like that, who are here to destroy it. Now, when Prabhupada says the Krishna Consciousness movement, we think ISKCON. I don't think ISKCON. I think all the Krishna Consciousness movements, all the devotees, all the Gaudiya movements, everything. That's what I think. Because Prabhupada said, you can't be Krishna conscious outside of the Krishna conscious movement. He didn't say outside of ISKCON. And he meant you can't be Krishna conscious. Obviously, you can go join another Sangha that's not officially registered at ISKCON and be Krishna conscious, whether it's ISKCON friendly or not so friendly or just ISKCON neutral. And they have another Acharya, and Prabhupada's just a Siksha Guru in that organization. Obviously, you can be Krishna conscious. They're chanting Hare Krishna. They have a bona fide guru. They're hearing Bhagavatam. They have kirtan. But when Prabhupada says Krishna conscious movement, he's not just saying ISKCON. Devotees take it as ISKCON. Oh, they're demons in ISKCON. Who are they? Oh, I can't say there weren't a few that wanted to have the potential to destroy, and actually some of them almost did destroy a part of ISKCON before they were removed. Now, Prabhupada's saying this broad perspective. He said there are people in the guise of devotees who are actually demons who are trying to destroy this movement. So that was a shock. There's actually people who are practicing devotion service who are here to destroy us. Now you're all looking around, making your list. Who is it? Maybe it's my temple president. No, I don't think Prabhupada wanted us to do that. I think Prabhupada just wanted us to note that if it's obvious that someone is trying to, replace Prabhupada and run off with ISKCON and, control it for his own aggrandizement, yeah. Okay, that's obvious. So, so these for us at that young stage, thinking there's no Maya and ISKCON, these are shockwaves that we could actually destroy this movement, because we thought the non-devotees, we have to protect ourselves from them. They could destroy it, and Prabhupada's saying they won't destroy it. Only you can destroy it. Wow! So we can bring Maya into ISKCON more than the non-devotees can, and we can destroy ISKCON in a way they could never do. That's interesting, isn't it? You agree? So don't put mayanize on your sandwich today, okay? You're not allowed to use mayanize on your prasadam. Turning japa to Maya. So we already did that one. Regarding Prabhupada saying we're all in Maya and we sometimes fall into Krishna, seems we cannot expect for ourselves to be Krishna conscious all the time, and our level is not possible. Prabhupada wrote me, he said the point of Krishna consciousness is to remember Krishna, always. So that's the goal. It's amazing. I can't hit C more. I press C more with my left hand. It doesn't work. Be Krishna conscious all the time. And our level, it's not possible for us being Krishna conscious all the time. And we're able to be Krishna only from time to time. I think it was a joke. It was a joke, but it was a philosophical point. Because by saying I fell into Maya, then the idea was, well, I'm Krishna conscious all the time, and sometimes I fall into Maya. And Prabhupada's saying, your conditioned soul, your constitutional position is that you're Maya, and you have to practice Krishna consciousness 24/7 to be Krishna conscious. And so you have to fall into Krishna. You have to, because if you don't work on falling into Krishna, you're automatically out of Krishna. That's the way I understand it. Not that you can't be Krishna conscious 24/7, but your natural position is not to be. So you have to do all these things to keep you in Krishna consciousness. That's how I understand it. So, not like, because if you say I fell into Maya, oh, you were Krishna conscious all day and for one moment you fell into Maya? Rather than, I'm in Maya all day, I fell out of Maya into Krishna and I fell back into Maya. When I wasn't looking, I fell back into Maya. Something like that. So Krishna is saying, I saw it from the Christian conditioning perspective. It's the concept of fear that differs in each individual. Makes sense, yeah. Yeah. Christian perspective, you're going to hell, God doesn't like you and will abandon you. That's like pretty scary. Unhealthy, I think. Hare Krishna, Reshma. I am uploading the sadhu t-shirt. Da-da-da-da. So, Jyotirmaya is confirmed. There's a lot of truth in that story. So, if you have a lot of tattoos, a lot of rings in your ears and nose, or your hair is dyed, you may want to consider taking initiation, taking shelter of Kadamba Kanana Swami, or if you're a rock and roller. That's just a joke, but maybe some truth in it. Hare Krishna. Yes. His kirtans are amazing. Hearing stories about terrible presidents can be create an image in my mind, but in all the congregations I have been, temple presidents were also so humble and helpful. That's nice. Working around the clock. It's true. They do amazing. They work so hard. If someone didn't point it out, no one would even know how they were authority figures. Yes, some temple presidents they're all nice. It's just the problem is, when you take a position of leadership, so much more is expected of you. You're the nice guy everybody likes, everybody gets along. And then you take a position of leadership, and there's all these expectations. You have to be good at this, good at that, good with people. And maybe you're not so great with people or so great with organizing. There's a problem. Okay, so now, if we don't put an announcement on Facebook that there's no class, no more classes this week because I'm coughing a lot, then it means there'll be class Wednesday. Tomorrow I have a meeting, and although the meeting starts later, I think it's better I don't have class, because to have class in a meeting, that's like, it's almost like 4 hours. 3.5. It's a big chunk of time. And then I can rest a little more. We can see how I'm doing. And I'm just going to see the doctor today because I have not so much mucus anymore in the chest. It's all in my head. Prabhu, it's all in your head. There's really no mucus. No, there is. It's in my head, definitely. So we're going to try to deal with that. But I'm able to breathe. I'm able to smell things that I couldn't smell. So we're getting better. Okay, so don't mayanize Krishna, or turning Krishna into Maya. All right, make your list of all the devotees you criticized. Make your list of all the devotees you appreciated. Hopefully your list of appreciation will increase over time. So there'll be nobody on your list that you criticized, only people that you appreciated. And there'll be nothing in Krishna consciousness you turned into Maya. And then you can go back to Godhead. Krishna will say, okay, you're in. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo.